Greetings, everyone. Uh, this is the third of three sessions on the question of what is a library if the building is closed. Uh, the first one dealing with internet access, uh, a huge, well, they're all huge topics. And then the second one on digital services, uh, ballooning demand for these services from libraries. And today, physical materials, which is at least as challenging as the first two on how this is being done and can it be done. We've got actually four excellent speakers today, and I'll introduce them as we go through. So allow me to run through these slides. I borrowed this image from the Idaho Falls Library. They used it as a sign when they were closed for a holiday. It was Columbus Day, but I saw it looking through, and it captures what we're talking about here. The amazing librarians trying to meet the needs in their communities. The Gigabit Libraries Network is our project. My name's Don Means. I'm the director of this ad hoc collaboration of innovative libraries doing things with technologies. Our main focus recently has been related to connectivity in the form of library access to digital materials. And Fiber to the Library was an initiative we started now 13 years ago, advocating that that's the smartest investment of public funds is to run fiber to all 16,000 plus library facilities. And then for the past few years, how to use wireless, especially open spectrum wireless technologies, to extend that connectivity beyond the building. And I touched on that in the last two series. Today, this is, kind of what a lot of libraries are facing and trying to do. Nearly all libraries are closed, but some, in some parts, are offering curbside pickup. And so that's great, especially for people that don't otherwise have access to digital materials. And yet at the same time, some of these are having to stop curbside pickup because of the increasing levels of lockdown that are coming from governors and health officials. But that doesn't stop librarians to provide information services to all. It's an extraordinary institution in our mind. It's the quintessential community institution. That it's the Swiss Army knife of community institutions. It does more different things than any other private or public enterprise I would offer, and being open to all. I mean, who does that doesn't want your your wallet or your whatever. So libraries and librarians are wonderful, and we contend that they should be considered an essential service now. Access to public information should be considered essential, and libraries should be given latitude to access their facilities, of course, in safe ways, to offer as many services as possible. It's not just a matter of access to the internet, which is a primary service that libraries provide, digital service they provide. It's also access to trusted information, especially information related to what's going on right now, this pandemic. So there's global information, there's local information, at every level, and it's overwhelming, and it's growing rapidly. So having librarians play their usual role of curation of material and information is in high demand right now, and hopefully there's availability of resources to redirect some library staff towards rebuilding or redesigning their web pages so that people can, a lot of people can start there and then find specific information that they may be looking for. I mean, it's nothing new about it. It's just that it can be tailored to the current circumstance. Our topic today, dealing with handling physical materials, is pretty far afield from our usual activity as Gigabit Libraries. As the name implies, we deal mostly with access and what the digital's applications and content relate there too. But in looking at this question of what is a library when the building is closed, you have to think about the physical aspect of it. And that, of course, is the more historic role of libraries. So, you know, the people that are here today in the day 3 of this series, you folks are the hardcore. I don't know how many people have been to participate in the last 2 days, but thank you for your interest. And today's topic, I think, won't take as long because IMLS has created a session the day after tomorrow, and it's full. I saw it early on, but failed to register on the spot. So I'll just have to wait for the recording of it. But I hope some of you were able to register for that. In any case, they'll have some top epidemiologists on there to talk about, I guess, the kinds of procedures that can safely handle you know, paper and other physical products. So this is also a resource page that they've set up there on the screen, and there'll be a lot more than today's the day after tomorrow's session. Will be findable there. We've set up a new page on our own site, the resource hub that we had for a number of connectivity projects. We're repurposing as a response hub. So that's where the recordings from today's session, yesterday's, the day before, will be found. The links are up for the last 2 sessions, and we'll put this one up after we finish, and whatever else comes up in the meantime. After today, the open question is, you know, what's next? We're thinking that this conversation that we've started having probably can go forward, not with the intensity that we've done for the past few days, but maybe we can do a weekly check-in, see how people are doing, what kind of ideas are coming up. You know, there'll be a lot of information, a mountain of information, as I mentioned, is piling up right now, and sorting through that's going to be difficult, but maybe we can do something and be some nexus of useful information for people. We'll just see what happens, but that's our plan at the moment. So our program today is, we've got 3 excellent presenters scheduled, and we have a 4th presenter who's going to speak first, and that is Ann Okerson with the International Federation of Libraries Associations, which, by the way, is hosting our Zoom call today. Stephen Weiber is on from Brussels, and he's manning the control booth, as it were, for the Zoom call, muting people as they may fail to do on their own when necessary, and otherwise recording and posting the after effects, the chat, as well as the video. So Ann is going to give us a little perspective about the International Coalition of Library Consortia on working with publishers to ease up the restrictions on resources, which are in high demand. I'm sure all of you who are libraries are experiencing increased demand on your digital services and content. So Ann, why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is before we move on?
Okay. Not to misrepresent myself, I work for the Center for Research Libraries. I have been very active in IFLA for the last 20 years, as Stephen and others know, and have had a long career in academic libraries, particularly in collection development and administration. But 20 plus years ago, I had the opportunity to be one of the founders of this group called the International Coalition for Library Consortia. This is a completely volunteer group, which has just grown in strength over 20 years and is very active in serving library consortia, their members, and their staff. Now, library consortia don't actually directly serve patrons. So for us, the issue is what can we do to help in situations like this? We have, I think, over 200 international library consortial members in different, I don't know, 40 different countries, representing thousands of libraries of all sorts. Although our big emphasis is academic, and I know your emphasis here is more public, but nonetheless, we do work a lot with public library community. So come the coronavirus, and we said, what can we do? We don't directly serve patrons, but we have a history of issuing statements and calls for action that are broadly released to dozens and hundreds of lists and media outlets, and they are noticed and often do result in action. So on the 13th of March, we released a statement which was our call to library publishers. I'm trying to get a screenshot of it up here. There we go. So there's our statement on the pandemic and its impact on library services and resources. And what this really was a call to action on behalf of the library community, but also our outreach to publishers. And we asked the publishers in this statement to do a number of things that would benefit libraries. So we were asking them to make relevant content and data sets about the pandemic itself freely available. And as you know, many or most organizations have now started to do that. We asked publishers to waive any and all user limits that they have in their contracts with any libraries. We asked them to lift contractual interlibrary loan restrictions and photocopying limits. And library contracts for libraries of all sorts are full of that kind of thing. And we have said that we would use copyright and fair use to its maximum. We also asked publishers for pay resources to allow flexible periods, to allow lengthened payment dates, to delay or reduce any price increases that were coming to zero if possible, to lift paywalls wherever possible, and lift other restrictions. So this was kind of a nice ask, more focused on the academic side of the house, but capturing really a lot of general resources. To this, we added, and it comes at the end of the statement, a spreadsheet of publishers that were responding to us and making resources available more broadly. So here's a sample of the spreadsheet that shows up at the bottom. We list by general content, we list by other kinds of categories, and we say what the publisher has agreed that they will do. And as you see, annual reviews is a nice one, very important journals, at least in academic fields, and all access controls are lifted for the duration. I mean, this is kind of our ideal. But we describe for each publisher that's working with us what they have agreed to do for libraries. So that's very, very good. I think the list is about 50 or 60 now. And some of these are general resources of broad interest to public libraries as well. So where have we gotten to as of last night? We asked for signatories on this statement. We have 104 representing 38 countries and 4 international organizations, which include ARL, SPARC, Liber, and IFL, and maybe we can even get IFLA to sign on. We have volunteer translations into 8 different languages of this statement, which are also widely circulated in their countries: Arabic, Chinese, French, Icelandic, Italian, Russian, Spanish, and Turkish. So this has gone far and wide. And, I have spreadsheets of how many signatures and responses per country. For a library resource statement, we have got a lot of Twitter action. So over 10,000 yesterday, and our all-time high for, excuse me, for Facebook. So that's.
And excuse me,
Yeah.
I think your paper shuffling is too close to your microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at these printed papers as I talk. I
Sure.
will stop shuffling because I've got only really one more thing to tell you about, and that is that our colleagues at Ithaca Strategy and Research have also started a survey around the same time asking academic libraries in the US to report what their library situation is. And I have a screenshot here that has got the outcomes to date. I believe over 800 academic libraries have reported in, have said whether they're open or closed, and they are mostly closed, and what they're doing, what kind of services they're able to continue, what kind of services they cannot continue, and what actions they're taking. Let's see where my screenshot is of that. It's not coming up. Well, anyway, I can send you the links to all of these things. At the end of the Ithaca screenshot, the end of the Ithaca link, there's also, yeah, here it is. The end of the Ithaca link, there's also a link to other countries who are compiling similar kinds of data. So Australia, Europe, UK, Canadian, and other countries. So I think in the sense of mapping the field, what's being done where and how, we are getting a very good handle on at least that part. And hopefully all of that will contribute to bringing more resources to library patrons all over the world. So those were my comments, Don.
And this is terrific. And what we're trying to do here is to push initiatives for specific projects, that are responsive today, and yet hopefully those will also push needed policy changes as quickly as possible, or over the long term. It's rather than just leading with policy issues, we're looking to highlight practices that people are doing, and this resource you've just shown us is terrific. I think I've actually been in that room. That's the background where you are. I believe that's a room in Meow Wolf. This psychedelic museum.
It is.
Santa Fe. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Meow Wolf, indeed. As I was talking about this, I was trying to get a handle on the number of academic libraries worldwide. This is very difficult to do, but we think in the US it's around 4,000 if you exclude things like hairdressing schools. And, those are all important, but they probably don't fall within the realm of the kinds of things we're talking about here. And as far as globally, the numbers you see vary anywhere from 30 to 50,000 academic libraries worldwide. So even though we're not public libraries, our coverage of people and students is huge in libraries and library consortia. So that's something to be remembered as we talk about serving the public, because many of these libraries are open to the public.
Indeed, and thank you for making that point. Jim O'Donnell from ASU Library, who's helping today, made similar points yesterday, and we'll be searching for these kinds of cross categorical collaborations between academic, public, and school libraries going forward, because I think that there are quite a few that are untapped. So let's move to our first presenter from Milledgeville, Georgia, Stephen Hauser. Welcome, Stephen. We didn't get to your presentation yesterday. It was jammed full. The day before, I did show a couple of slides from the work you were doing there on extending access into public spaces around your community using this long-range wireless. But why don't you give us an update on today's topic, or pick up yesterday's topic related to digital services, and take the next 6-7 minutes to bring us up to date.
Sure thing. Can everybody hear me?
Here and see.
All right, great. I'm going to try to share the screen. Everybody see that?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks, Don. As you mentioned, I'm from Milledgeville, Georgia. We're about 90 miles or so southeast of Atlanta. We're kind of a rural community, but we do have 3 colleges in town, so we're kind of an interesting fit for what we are. I think we're pretty standard in terms of what we offered before this crisis: usual ebooks, audiobooks, databases, internet access. Obviously, we're somewhat unique in having TV Whitespace on offer. Our reference was mostly phone-based and in person, so you'll see that we kind of have a very limited offering in that before now. I highlighted in green what we've added. We've obviously been purchasing more ebooks and audiobooks, working with our public schools to help support learning from home. We have a landing page for COVID-19 information. We've been doing a lot more outreach. We've been considering how we're going to handle our census outreach, working with our local coordinator. We are in the pilot stages of a trial for Simply E for consortia. So it's us and Atlanta Fulton are both working on this right now. That kind of consolidates our ebook vendors and platforms to hopefully make it easier for the patrons to access that information. And then we're looking at, I think a lot of libraries are doing this kind of thing: virtual story times, book club, hangouts, and yoga. So this is what we're doing right now. In the last 2 weeks, we've added everything in green. This is what we're looking at for the future. So obviously more purchases for ebooks, audiobooks, things like that. We're looking at expanding our TV Whitespace offerings. So having the 3 that we have now in public parks, and looking at other locations, whether that's schools. What's the safest place to keep people in a parking lot, but not ask them to congregate to access internet? We're going to probably add some sort of virtual chat. We're looking at a Adulting 101 course that we can add. So cooking, car repair, maintenance, mixology. There's a lot of bars and restaurants in this town that have closed down that service the college students, and some of those people are looking for some help. So we're hopeful that we can kind of offer them some programming money to do these courses virtually. Digital cards, we're looking at ways of expanding access to our resources. We're looking at, we're unfortunately part of a consortia here in Georgia, and we have limited ability to kind of move on our own, but we're looking at statewide what we can do to open things up a little bit more. We're also looking at adding some tutorials. We can't help our elderly patrons in person anymore, and it's even harder over the phone. So we're looking at what they might need. This is a screenshot of our homepage. Niche Academy has a little tab that's on the right-hand side of the page, and it pops up and shows all these videos that people can access right from the homepage. You see this internet basics. So there's a few things I think we can add there in addition to the database-specific videos that we have. As Don mentioned, we have an idea for a mobile TV Whitespace unit. This is kind of the schematic of it. We have, I mean, it's kind of a hulking monolith in this prototype version. It's about 8 feet tall, but that was on purpose. We want to draw the eye to it. It's going to be solar powered. It's going to have a TV Whitespace unit and a Wi-Fi hotspot. We also designed it to be interactive. It's an old payphone that we've converted for this purpose. We wanted to get community engagement, but I don't think we're going to add that in right now. It seems like a bad idea to encourage people to reuse that payphone over and over. So right now it's just going to be used as a mobile hotspot. I mentioned some of the features. We have gone back and forth about designing a unit that can handle the equipment that we need, but also something that's not going to pick up and walk away. That's a big issue, but something that we can move around as need be. We've kind of hit a nice middle ground there with this unit. It's all steel. It's been welded. It's a little further along than this now. It's almost completely powder coated in white, so it's a little more friendly looking. We've got a design for it that's bright, and we hope to have this operational in a couple weeks here. I think for a lot of libraries, this has presented a lot of questions. We have no idea how long this is going to last, and that affects planning. As I mentioned, we're a college town. We have a lot of bars and restaurants that have closed. We're also heavily tourism dependent, so that's going to hit us pretty hard. So we don't know in the next funding cycle where we're going to be at. That affects staffing levels, how we want to talk to our staff about their future jobs and what that looks like, and we're working with them to craft what that might look like in the future. Building repair and maintenance, do we do what we need to do now that we're closed and it won't affect the patrons, or do we wait? It may be a situation like the Great Recession where construction costs go way down, and that might be a smart move for us to wait about a year or so for some of these things. Our business incubator, we may have to retool some of the directions that goes in. We may be more looking at funding benefits and unemployment and small business loans for our local community instead of doing job training and talking about other things. And finally, I think this leads into today's discussion is, do we keep buying books? When do we start back with that? We've put a hold on that for now so that we can put our resources towards digital. I don't know when we can buy print books again. And I don't know if we should be buying a few just to have them in hand now. It's kind of something we're considering internally. So I think that was 6 to 7 minutes, Don. I'll turn it over to you.
That's fantastic, Stephen. Thank you. And I failed to mention in your introduction that you were just named Librarian of the Year for the state of Georgia. Congratulations on that. And sorry, your celebration was kind of swamped by the pandemic. But nevertheless, you know, that's great. And I appreciate you. I mean, all of these different things you just listed that you're trying to tackle must be fairly common across the profession. But especially the part about planning, we don't think about, you know, we're in response right now. We're hardly even thinking about recovery, much less, you know, rebuilding phase. But it's not too early to think forward about the prospect of budgets collapsing. I mean, this is the amount of money that's being printed every day right now is just astonishing. And that bill is going to come due somehow, some when. And the way it usually happens or has in the past in times of financial crisis, libraries are looked at not as essential services often, but as nice to have, but, you know, a convenient place to cut. So we'll hear from Stuart how the budget situation has gone in Ireland versus the UK as a comparison, but it's something to be thinking about. And so hats off to you there. So hopefully we'll have some questions for everybody. I've got a number I'm going to hold off myself so that we can get through our program. We have Carrie Coogan from the Kansas City Library, a library that has been doing innovative work for years, convening community conversations about broadband infrastructure and a range of programs. They've just been a major innovator, and Carrie offered to come on and talk about some of the things she's attempting to do now with on topic related to handling physical materials and the needs of people that don't have access, which is not to be neglected, especially now, and has done so with practically no notice. So Carrie, thank you. You might unmute and tell us what's going on in Kansas City. Unmute, Carrie.
Let's see.
There you go. Good.
Okay. Good. Hi. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dawn, for asking me to join the call. And I apologize, I don't have any slides ready to go. I'm Carrie Coogan. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Affairs and Community Engagement at the Kansas City Public Library. We're right on the state line of Kansas and Missouri, and so when we look at the work that we're doing, we are mainly in the footprint of the heart of the urban core of Kansas City, Missouri, but we work very regionally across the state line and with other communities surrounding us as well. So I'm just going to go over the basic services that we're continuing to do, which we're really, I don't want to say pushing because we're trying to really be respectful of how people are feeling right now, and they're being inundated with all kinds of news and information. And so we don't want to shovel more information on top of them. So we're trying to be respectful of that, but we do want to make sure that people know that they can get an e-library card. And that library card is very simple and easy to do. You can get books, audiobooks, music, television, movies, magazines, and newspapers. So we always try to stress the importance of that, because in this time where there's going to be a lot of extra time on your hands, we want to make sure they know that there's all of these free resources available. And we've added much more of those services and more variety. We have several online series for adults and for children, lynda.com, Universal Class, and Brain HQ. We're also, as many libraries are doing, we've got up and running a live story time every day at 10:30, every single day of the week. And it's really become popular. We have over, this past week, we had over 1,000 views on at least 3 of them. So people are catching on and they're watching. We've also added Facebook Live art classes in the afternoon for children. So every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock, there's going to be some sort of art class for students as well. And then we've always had a Friday night family fun, which is our Friday night 6:30. It was at one of our locations, but now we put that online. So that's something that we're trying to keep as many of our regularly scheduled programming things available for people so that they know they were there. So they'll be there every day for them. Something else we did, we took all expiration dates off of our library cards through July 1st. So if your card was set to expire, we cleared that. If your card had already expired, we have reinstituted that to January, and then we're going back further and further just in case somebody's card expired and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't access the library. We want to make it as easy as possible. Let's see. So the new things so those are just all the basic things that we're really trying to push and get people aware of. But the new things that we're starting to do, we have been really trying to find a way to actually get physical books into people's hands if possible, because we're worried about people that don't have access, particularly to children's books at this time. In our school district, they had gone off to spring break before we kind of knew what the severity of the problem was. And so many of the students were not prepared to either do distance learning or to have several books at home. And so we're starting this coming week, we're calling it a book bundle drop off. And we're gonna start out at the housing authority locations in our community. And the books will be brand new books that we have, and they'll be children's books. And they'll be in a plastic bag sealed with our sticker on the front of it. And then inside we'll have e-resources available, or help, or numbers that they can call if they need things. And so we're gonna start that at a drop-off location at our low income housing locations. And then we're also going to start actively publicizing next week that our library parking lots are free and open for people to come to the parking lot, where there's going to be 24/7 Wi-Fi access. And we think at this point without a password at all, even though we're going to put up signage. But we are purchasing signs and creating signs that will be large signs outside the library as you drive by, knowing that that's a place that you can come in and park and practice social distancing. Because that's one of the biggest concerns, is that people don't have Wi-Fi access, and we have this huge shortage of hotspots. So as we try to find hotspots and get people connected, we're just trying to find as many ways to give them access if they don't have it. The other thing is that our library is a huge collaborator, we have a ton of partners. So we've been reaching out to our partners to see if there's ways, even if we're closed, that we can help them. So many of our homeless shelters are experiencing a lot of overflow. So we've tried to offer them hotspots and laptop computers, so that when they've been inundated with more homeless people who are there longer times during the day. So we've offered laptops and hotspots so that they have access. In our school district, we already have a program where every student in the school district, their student ID is also their library card. So we've had some charter schools that weren't a part of that program reach out to us to see if we can add them now that we're in the middle of this crisis, which we're trying desperately to do, because this offers all kinds of extra opportunities for students in our school districts. And I've also, me and others on the leadership team have really tried to be a part, and I don't know how else to say this except worm your way into some of the community response conversations, or call the mayor's office and offer up your resources, whether that's if you need to use our parking lots for testing, or at one of our locations, we've got a blood drive scheduled. So that's not our staff working the blood drive, but we will have people who will come in, they'll manage the whole process, but everybody knows and trusts the library locations. And so we're gonna have a blood drive there. And we wanna make sure that we're being included in conversations, because the library is still this trusted place, even though we're closed. And so we're offering up either our resources through our websites and through our e-blasts and our social media to help communicate messaging, but also our locations as things become potentially more dire in terms of how this virus progresses in our community. The other big thing that I wanted to mention is we have always had this, but we are continuing to maintain, and I would suggest everybody do this, a good relationship with the media people in your community. So your television reporters, your local NPR station, tell them what you're doing or tell them what you need, because I know they are all reporting on a lot of, what's happening in your community with the virus, but they're also looking for good stories or things that are happening or ways that you can help the community. And so I just think they're going to want to talk about what you're doing as a library system. So I would reach out to them and cultivate a relationship. Because going long term, you can be a weekly resource. Here's what's new at the library, or here's our virtual online classes that we can offer, etc. So I would really, really work on doing that. And then finally, I would just mention, and I'm sure a lot of you already know this, that IMLS, Institute for Museum and Library Services, is very close to, they were supposed to vote on it yesterday, and Dawn, I don't know if they did, but there's going to be if it passes, IMLS will have access to $50 million for digital inclusion services that will go to libraries across the country. So I would make sure that you're beginning to cultivate a relationship either with your state broadband person, or let your Congress people know that you're a library and that you're working hard in the digital inclusion space, and that you're working with partners to try to get people connected,
Okay,
and that
thanks.
this is an essential service. So getting people connected is an essential service. So I would just think about ways that you can make sure that you're tapping into funding opportunities. In our community, there's a lot of funders who really, really want to offer money for hotspots, offer money to get things going back in our community. And as you know, there's a hotspot shortage, but still keeping in touch with those funders so that, as things start to open up, you can still access the money and access the resources that are available in the community. I think I went over.
Fantastic. No, that was, I'll play it back and slow the speed down so I could take it all in. That's
Okay.
great, Carrie. I mean, you guys are cranking, busy. Good point about IMLS. Their response, I believe that funding has gone through. I believe it was part of the large bill that happened, and the IMLS page link that was up on the prior slide shows some tips on how to work with them, approach them, and find paths to access those funds in the near term, right? That's what this is about. So that's great. I thought your point about publicity was outstanding. This is a classic story of libraries, that nobody knows what we do. Nobody knows the things that we offer. And this is really a medium for doing that, local broadcasting, TV and radio, or even linking to their streams on your own site could be a way, something to offer them. It's also a way to reach people. We were talking about this in the first session, how to let people know about these new digital services that don't have access to, or just any information about what's going on at the library. You can do email blasts, but it's just not going to reach those people. So you need traditional media, analog media, to communicate and even offer services. You could do story time over the local radio broadcast, as far as that goes.
Right.
That's great. I also, I just want to last say I appreciate the effort to support student needs right now. So schools are scrambling. You could replace our title here, what is a library if the building is closed, with almost any other institution. What is a school, a clinic, you name it. And so schools are definitely scrambling like crazy to try to figure out how to support students. A few are kind of been doing online for a while, but most are not. It's not integrated into the curriculum and the rest of it. So giving alternatives for students to, well, kind of self-pace or study in parallel to whatever they think their learning needs might be is important. And the library has the greater flexibility to offer those kinds of things. And so that's great. I think I learned that the student turnover in the Kansas City School District is phenomenal. The number of students that move once, every year, it's just really daunting for a lot of these urban areas. So thanks for everything you're doing, and thanks again for showing up. And I'm sure we'll be back to you with some more questions. Okay, we'll be back with you. So on to our cleanup speaker, Stuart Hamilton, leading library development for Ireland. Stuart as was on yesterday. He's a former head of public policy for IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations. He did a stint as a deputy director for the library in Qatar, which opened a new, huge central library while he was there, and now he's back in the moister climes of the north in Dublin. So, Stuart, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here, Don.
Well, take it away. Welcome back.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Anything you feel like, summing up the last 3 days of the 3 topics, what you've heard, welcome to expand as much as you want.
Excuse the dog. I guess that's, the worst possible timing. She's been quiet for the last sort of 10 minutes. But anyway, I'll...
She's on. Okay. Here we're doing I just learned it last night at 8 o'clock. People go outside and howl in appreciation for all the medical workers. And I stepped outside yesterday. It was really strange, but nice in a way. So I think your dog is onto it.
Well, she's out of the room now, so I can carry on.
Okay. Well, please do. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I think yesterday I gave a little bit of an overview of what we're doing with the digital resources here with Ireland's public libraries, but I also realized that I'd sort of neglected to give maybe an idea of the size of the place for a lot of people on the call. I'm in charge of the National Public Library Strategy for the Public Library Network here, and we have about 330 branches in a country of about 6.5 million people. So that's basically about the size of a state that would be between Missouri and Indiana. And I thought that was kind of interesting to put it against that backdrop. We've got about 1.17 million registered users, and the service is extremely popular here. And it's against that backdrop that we're sort of like dealing with the situation in front of us. So I thought, Don, yesterday I did do some of the stuff on switching to digital, and we're very similar to the sorts of things that Carrie's just talked about. So I'll concentrate a little bit on physical here. We've got about 12.8 million physical items in the service. So regardless of the amount of money or resources we're putting into online, we're still massively focused on getting books into people's hands and DVDs and CDs. Of the people that are registered, we have about 17 million visits a year. So this is a very popular activity in the country, and the majority of those people are coming in and taking physical items away. So all of a sudden, we've basically stopped all of that, obviously. Our library's closed on the 12th of March, and since then we've almost exclusively been offering online access. So now we're coming up against that challenge, and Carrie also mentioned it, about how do we get books, particularly into the hands of children, but also into the hands of sort of elderly, older, and now all of us are isolating readers. Now, since we spoke yesterday, Don, we've gone into a further stage of lockdown here. Basically, you're now no longer allowed to go out of your house more than 2 kilometers unless you absolutely have to get food. So we are now in sort of like, they've rolled all the dice here in terms of the lockdown sort of models, and that's where we find ourselves. So against that backdrop, I've been trying to find out what other people are doing. Now I'm going to try and share my screen. This is probably going to go disastrously wrong, but let's have a look. Um, anyway, and we'll see what happens here. You'll have to
There we go.
tell me if you can see
Yep.
this. Yep. Okay. Well, I'm going to start. Where am I going to start? By trying to find out what everybody else in Europe was doing. So I'm a member of an organization called NAPL, which is the European Public Library Authority. So I have here a spreadsheet which we put together pretty quickly, which gives you the overview in about 14 different countries. And one of the things I wanted to find out very quickly was this one here. How are people dealing with return books, and how are they thinking about things in terms of a physical service? So I started this about 7 or 8 days ago, and I've been working out who's been doing what with books. And if you go through this spreadsheet, and I can share the link in the chat in a moment, I did the other day, you'll see some people here, you know, are sort of quarantining, cleaning, returning books. Other people are not doing anything at the moment. And one of the problems we've had from the beginning is getting like definite advice from our health department on exactly what we should be doing with books, because we can't move to lending sort of physical stuff until we actually are confident we can advise the staff properly. So that's been a big thing for us. And my team are the group that basically advises the sector. So we've also been trying to put together something like this, which is in very much draft form, but this is recommendations for handling physical material. Because once we've got this down, basically we're going to feel a lot more confident about recommending to people whether or not they actually want to move to allocating staff resourcing for a physical model. So what I've also been doing is asking my team to sort of take that, that spreadsheet I showed you and work out what models people are using. And here I'm going to do a sort of models paper for my guys. We've got an adapted house service model, which we can see being used, that drive-through model. This is all works in progress here. Book subscription model. And then we're going to be looking at car parks, like Carrie said, and sort of spaces outside the front of the library. So my objective is on Monday or Tuesday next week to be sharing these sort of protocols with the library sector, to be sharing these models with the library sector. Because basically at the end of the day, it's going to be down to the local authorities in Ireland how they want to deal with it. We have 30 of them. And presently the public library sector staff, as I've mentioned on these calls before, are being reallocated. That means that they might be getting dragged over to work with the health and safety executive on contact tracing. They might be manning some phone lines. They've been going into the library buildings, but basically we're all public servants, so we're all going to be basically redeployed to the best places to help deal with the crisis. And that is very much going to inform my county librarians as to whether or not they're going to be able to offer a physical delivery service. And some of them, I think, are understandably reluctant when they're concerned about staffing resources. And other of them, like Cork City, have already extended their housebound service to basically be delivering books to more people within that urban area. So that's basically where we're at. And so it will be a sort of local by local sort of area. But before I sort of finish my 5-minute turn, I got this today, which I thought was quite interesting, from the Czech Republic, which is a little infographic on how they're handling books during their returning from COVID-19. So I think we'll be doing something similar to that. I dare say the IMLS thing, which I also should have registered for but failed, so I have to watch that on the recording. Hopefully we'll come up with something as well. But certainly I felt unable to tell people to move ahead with a physical service until I'm very confident about the quarantining and letting people work with physical books. It's all right with everything we've got in the libraries that hasn't gone out, but everything will need to be packed individually. We need to look at how things are coming back. So yeah, I'll leave it there and sort of open for questions and everything. But I think we will have some form of physical service across the country within the next couple of weeks, not least because, as I mentioned to you yesterday, there's a forthcoming paper on community resilience, and that's going to be a big factor of making sure that people who are remote and isolated still feel they're able to plug themselves into normal services.
That's terrific, Stuart. I mean, it's daunting, but it's terrific that you're stepping up to it. Stephen Hauser asked on the chat about the same question that you're asking, or what level of confidence can you have about a specific time to quarantine materials until they're safe? I mean, I think there's a lot of these kind of key points of information that we're all needing, like, am I positive? Am I negative? And how long does it take? It's not just books. We're bringing things into our home, or do we put them aside, leave them to sanitize for how long? What kind of materials?
Well, I can jump back to
Yeah. What do you have?
and say that 7 days is massively conservative, I think.
Yeah.
Basically, what I've done with that paper there, I'm not sharing that with you guys yet, I'll be happy to when it's done, is we've put that down as the most conservative we could come up with based on a number of bits and pieces. Let's see if I just go back and share again very quickly and show you down the bottom where I actually dragged some things from. Ones that they're currently using, here. So the ALA NEDCC recommendations, I think, has got in there. Is it 36 hours or something? And they're referring to this paper here, the Med Archive paper, which only talks about cardboard, so it doesn't exactly go in on the plastic and stuff. Got IFLA's resources pages there. What I've done is I've put that 7 days, and I'm putting that out to my core group of city and county librarians, about 5 of them, and we'll probably row back a little bit from there, but I'm starting very conservatively, just to be safe, I guess, is the thing.
Yeah. I mean, time doesn't seem to be urgent on, what's the rush on the turnaround of a book. So I think safety, of course, is always the first measure, but even more so here, where it's not an urgent need. People can feel strongly about their need to, get the latest copy of a bestseller, but we can't put that at the top urgency list. So yeah, we'll feel our way along through that. Okay, we actually have gotten through our program with a few minutes left to spare. So we're going to kind of open it up here for a little discussion at the end. Anybody wants to weigh in? Please raise your hand or enter it in the chat. We have Bob Boker on with us, who's offered to offer some insight on remote access, one of the big points of contention and advocacy as far as we're concerned. Bob, what have you got for us?
Yes, thank you very much, Don. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just fine.
Sure. I've been working with ALA after I retired from the Wisconsin State Library for about 10 or 12 years and worked with the E-rate program since its inception. As many of you know, the FCC did confirm just a couple of days ago that certainly libraries and schools can allow their Wi-Fi signals to go outside the building into a nearby parking lot, for example, or maybe in the case of schools that may have an athletic field. But the whole issue of off-campus or off-library school property is still a problem, because technically from an E-rate perspective, that's not allowed. Now, both ALA and the Shelby Group that some of you are familiar with, the Schools Health Libraries Broadband Coalition that Don's also a member of, submitted letters to the FCC last week saying, we think you have the authority to simply go ahead and say that schools and libraries can offer Wi-Fi access outside of their property without jeopardizing their E-rate funds. But so far, the FCC hasn't moved on that. So that's something that groups inside the Beltway continue to push the FCC to act on that. I should say, in relationship to the CARES bill that passed, there is a follow-up bill that is being discussed that may come up for a vote later on in April when Congress gets back into session. And that one does have draft language in it that specifically allows off-campus access. I would again hope that the FCC will act before then, but we're still waiting on that whole issue of off-campus or off-property access. So it is somewhat frustrating.
Yeah, it is. Thanks. We're encouraging people to not wait on the FCC decision-making process, but to look for kind of alternatives that are within the strictures, like allocating out specific portions of the bandwidth and costing it out if that's what's going to be necessary is a fraction of the percentage of the monthly expense of connecting the building would be one way. Connecting to eligible, I'm sorry if this is irrelevant or not pertaining to libraries outside of the US, but maybe there's a corollary, but there's a specific allowance for connectivity to library bookmobiles and library kiosks. Unfortunately, there's not a widespread or universal definition of what constitutes a library kiosk. The work that Stephen's doing there in Georgia, we say clearly satisfies a reasonable definition of a kiosk, which is a public space, offers Wi-Fi. Maybe the interface device is problematic right now, something embedded to use, but it doesn't necessarily have to deal with physical materials, which of course is even less appropriate right now, but a tremendous value in the context of what people are getting in the parking lot right now. Stuart, is an issue for libraries in Ireland or anywhere else to extend their access service beyond the building and the parking lot?
You know, since we spoke on the first one of these calls, Don, I shared the outcome of the call with the county librarians, and I got one response in the few days afterwards from my colleague in Galway, and she said that they had looked to do that and sort of had run it by the council, and basically the council sort of turned it down on the grounds that people would be congregating and it would be interfering with social distancing.
That is a challenge, of course, hence the parking lot hotspot scenario. As Nathaniel pointed out and was mentioned earlier, Stephen Weiber, do you have something
Yes,
on that?
I was just going to add in, I think one of the challenges we sometimes face in Europe in particular is an even more vicious copyright policy than you will sometimes have. And so libraries be also being heavily restricted in terms of having to seek identities and get people to sign up and pass over their identities before they actually make use of the Wi-Fi. So I know we find a lot of libraries in France and Germany in particular that they aren't even able to offer Wi-Fi for the time being, but clearly there's an overriding public interest going on here, and there's hopefully a real opportunity to try and shift things on that and make people understand quite how important it is.
Well, that is our responsibility, is to make that case, and we're working on it. And thank you for all the work that IFLA does worldwide on behalf of the 300-something thousand public libraries as well as the other libraries. And I think that also makes the case that we're sharing ideas and information. It kind of starts out, because we are US based, is sharing among US, but there's no restriction on ideas, obviously, and solutions. So this is a global situation. This pandemic is paying no attention to national boundaries or laws or anything else. It's not paying attention to other competing disasters that may come up at the same time. We can just as easily have earthquakes, fires, and hurricanes on any other day as we can right now. So we should also be thinking about those kinds of possibilities as second responders, a designation for libraries in these times, and any time really. But I think we have an advantage here of reaching well beyond the borders of the US to look for answers and ideas everywhere. And hopefully we can be something of a vector for that kind of a thing. Just wanted to ask people to maybe enter into the chat. Well, maybe better than that, we'll follow up with a survey and see if people are interested in having an ongoing convening, what kinds of ideas they have, resources they have, and we'll try to compile something useful very shortly after this. I see we're now up on our hour, and we're trying to be respectful of everybody's time, even as we all may be working from home and virtual offices and whatnot. I just want to thank everybody for checking in here and tuning in and caring about this and being willing to work on a completely unexpected kind of a challenge that we have. But our notion is, you know, let's look for the weaknesses in this virus and the imposition it's putting on us, and let's attack back and find new solutions we haven't thought of before that'll live beyond this virus, hopefully, and improve our services and our life. And as ever, our hats off to all you librarians. You're the heroes of your communities, and you know, carry on. And we'll hope to reconvene soon and look forward to it. And thank you, everybody. And I think that's it for us. So we'll sign off for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Don.